Imagine this. A convoy of pristine SUVs rolls up to the ancient gates of St. Barnaby's Academy, one of Britain's oldest and most prestigious schools. Out step three Americans, each perfectly coiffed, designer backpacks, perched on shoulders, and sunglasses that could shield them from the sun or any criticism. They are, without a doubt, used to getting their way. But here in the land of stiff upper lips, uniformed students, and cues that are taken very seriously, their world is about to be turned upside down. The gates swing open and the first question in their minds: do we tip the headmaster? This is the moment where entitlement meets etiquette. And, spoiler alert, etiquette is winning. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. As they step into the quad, the Americans are immediately confronted with the no designer sneakers, no branded hoodies, and heaven forbid, no leggings disguised as trousers. Wait, we have to wear these? One whispers, holding up a blazer that has clearly seen decades of duty. Meanwhile, British students glide past with an air of nonchalance, perfectly buttoned blazers, ties knotted to perfection, and shoes so polished they could double as mirrors. Our American visitors, however, look like fashion victims lost in a historical reenactment. Cue the first whispers and stifled giggles from local students. You can almost hear the thought bubble over one American. Is this a medieval cosplay? Now, lunchtime. The Americans are ready to show off their sandwiches and organic kale smoothies, only to discover the British school dining hall runs on a very different system. No fancy meal deals. No snack bar with 3 levels of guacamole. Here, it's meat pies, chips, and the occasional mystery casserole. Cue panic. "Oh, I don't do peas," one complains, staring at a plate like it might bite back. Meanwhile, British students simply eat, occasionally exchanging polite quips about the weather or last night's footy match. The Americans, however, are floundering, trying to figure out the queuing system, because in Britain, queues aren't optional, they are sacred. And here comes the first proper lesson in humility. The student behind them in line politely says, "Excuse me, you're standing in the wrong queue." Cue jaw drop. Next up, history class. The teacher, Mr. Pritchard, is explaining the Industrial Revolution. The Americans, still recovering from lunch, raise hands constantly. But here's the catch. In a British classroom, you don't interrupt, ever. "So, we can't just say what we think?" one whispers. Mr. Pritchard doesn't even flinch. He continues, as if time itself respects the classroom rules. Meanwhile, the American students are struggling with terminology. Fag in British English does not mean what they think, and public school doesn't mean tuition free. The cultural misunderstandings are piling up like homework no one actually wants. Recess brings another battlefield: social hierarchy. The Americans march confidently onto the playground, ready to charm or intimidate their peers. But British children have their own unspoken rules. Cliques based on house colors, football skills, and sarcasm mastery. Attempting small talk about their personal yachts or summer trips to Aspen Falls Flat. The British students politely nod, and one comments dryly, "Fascinating. Tell me more about your holiday," with the kind of politeness that cuts sharper than a butter knife. Suddenly, entitlement doesn't translate. Social status here is earned through wit, resilience, and occasionally winning a football match. By mid-afternoon, the Americans are summoned to detention for talking excessively during silent reading. A minor offense in America? Perhaps. In Britain? Serious business. As they sit in the corner, fuming and checking watches, they realize something important. Here, authority isn't optional, and respect is earned, not bought. The detention master, a stoic woman named Mrs. Haversham, simply observes, offering only one comment: "Perhaps reflecting on your behavior will improve tomorrow." The Americans look like they've been sentenced to solitary confinement, in a polite, slightly judgmental way. By the end of the day, something remarkable happens. Our entitled visitors have learned the hard way. Manners matter, cues are sacred, peas must be tolerated, and sarcasm can hurt worse than any insult from a reality TV star. There's a moment of humility as they realize that being rich doesn't grant you immunity from British school rules. Here, tradition reigns supreme, and charm can only get you so far. The Americans leave, slightly humbled, with perhaps a new appreciation for British efficiency and the quiet menace of a perfectly timed eyebrow raise. Back home, or at least on the school bus, they recap their day. So, the peas thing was brutal, and don't even get me started on the queuing. Meanwhile, British students shrug, returning to football practice and tea break gossip, unconcerned by the chaos of entitled foreigners. The moral: sometimes, the biggest lessons come from the smallest details. A queue, a blazer, or a perfectly served meat pie. And let's be honest, watching someone used to getting everything suddenly adapt is comedy gold. As the sun sets on St. Barnaby's Academy, our rich American visitors depart, a little wiser and a little more cautious. They've discovered that in Britain, you can't buy respect. Charm can only get you so far, and school traditions are not to be trifled with. For viewers, the takeaway is clear. Humor, humility, and cultural awareness are essential. And if nothing else, watching entitlement meet tradition? Always entertaining. As the final bell rings, our American visitors think their day is over. Ah, the sweet freedom of after-school activities, or so they think. In Britain, after school isn't just football practice or drama club. It's an organized, sometimes slightly bewildering collection of traditions, from debating societies to tea time etiquette lessons. The Americans stumble into a debating club meeting where students discuss topics like, should we preserve Victorian architecture or modernize? The Americans, still jet-lagged from British sarcasm and uniform shock, attempt to argue about the superiority of Wi-Fi and frappuccinos. The room goes quiet. The teacher raises an eyebrow, and one British student mutters under their breath, "Bless them." Later, they're invited to the weekly tea and toast tradition, where polite conversation is mandatory. Our Americans nervously sip their tea, trying desperately not to grimace at the strong brew, while being quizzed on etiquette, table manners, and even small talk skills. Lesson learned: you can have all the money in the world, but in Britain, tradition and patience always trump entitlement. As the day finally comes to a close, the Americans line up at the school gates once more, bags heavier, egos slightly deflated, and pride bruised. They exchange awkward nods with classmates who've barely batted an eye all day, and for the first time, they reflect on what they've truly experienced. Cues aren't optional. Peas must be eaten, authority is respected, not negotiated. And perhaps most importantly, humility can't be bought. The sun sets on St. Friday. Barnaby's Academy and our entitled visitors leave with more than just a funny story. They leave with a lesson in cultural humility, British wit, and the quiet power of tradition. For viewers, it's a reminder that sometimes the funniest moments come not from chaos, but from watching entitlement collide with a system that simply doesn't care. No British school day is complete without a bit of gossip, and our American visitors quickly become the talk of the corridors. By mid-afternoon, whispers follow them wherever they go. "Did you see the new Americans in the quad? I heard they tried to tip the headmaster." Apparently, someone refused to eat the peas. The Americans remain blissfully unaware at first, thinking they're admired for their wealth and confidence. Meanwhile, British students exchange subtle smirks and witty commentary, quietly documenting every faux pas. By the end of the day, the Americans have unintentionally become school legends, not for charm or intellect, but for sheer entertainment value. And in Britain, where humor and sarcasm reign supreme, they've provided the perfect comedic relief. Lesson: in a school steeped in tradition, being different is inevitable, but being entitled and unprepared makes you unforgettable. As the sun dips lower over St. Barnaby's Academy, our American visitors reflect on the chaos, humor, and lessons of their first day. They discuss what they've learned. British students have a wit sharper than any American hedge fund. Tradition trumps extravagance. Even the smallest details, quiz, table manners, classroom etiquette, can feel like an insurmountable obstacle when ignored. And, surprisingly, humility can be more powerful than money. They may be rich, entitled, and accustomed to getting what they want, but today has shown them that some things, respect, patience, and a properly cooked meat pie, simply can't be bought. As they walk away from the school gates, slightly bruised but wiser, the final thought lingers. Britain's oldest traditions have met entitlement head-on, and for now, tradition wins.